welcome to Space Uncensored, the podcast where we demystify space and bring you the untold stories behind the scene. I'm Ina, your innovation evangelist.
Hi, and I am Andrea, your resident futurist, and today we are super thrilled to host Shelli Brunswick, who is the COO of Space Foundation, and she's also an advocate for space technology, innovation, and above all, what I'm really excited about, inclusion.
We will dive today into Shelli's inspiring journey, exploring her leadership at the Space Foundation, her vision for space commerce, and her continuous efforts to champion inclusion in the space community. So let's set our eyes into the stars. Shelli, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much. I'm so excited to join you. And obviously, we're going to talk about some of my favorite subjects, which are space, innovation, entrepreneurship, mentoring, leadership. So let's dive right in.
Amazing. So, can you tell us maybe with the first question about a particular moment in your journey that stands out for you, a moment which really, truly defined your dedication in the world of space? I think that everybody's super curious about that.
Well, I have to admit, there's so many wonderful moments in the journey, but I'm going to say in 2022, I was invited to be the commencement speaker at my alma mater, Colorado State University, Pueblo. And so being there, being the commencement speaker, looking out at the audience of students and family members and inspiring them to start their journey, whatever that journey was, and hopefully sharing a few lessons I'd learned during my journey. So that was really kind of an amazing culmination of my 25 years in the space industry and, being able to ultimately give back literally to the next generation of leaders right there at CSU Pueblo. So that was one of those pivot points for me.
That's fantastic.
Sounds amazing.
Amazing, absolutely. So I'm just curious, who are your own heroes or role models that kind of ignited your passion for space?
Well, obviously, I'm going to have to start with my grandmother and my mother, both of them role models, hard workers. My grandmother was an entrepreneur, a farmer, ran a tavern. I mean, entrepreneurial skills, we don't think about, 60 years ago, somebody running a tavern, but think about the business skills that somebody with a high school education had to run a tavern and, connect with the community. And back in those days, you were the connection point for the community. You brought people together and ran a business. And so my grandmother is a great role model, Rose as her name, and my mom, Betty Elizabeth, Betty, we call her Betty, or people call her Betty, but the formal name's Elizabeth. But she was a single parent. She worked in the manufacturing sector, primarily in manufacturing tires. So you can think back, a woman in manufacturing 30 some years ago was an anomaly. And so again, I never saw women in unique roles or male-dominated career fields as anything different because, my grandmother ran a tavern, my mom, was an entrepreneur and, worked in the manufacturing sector, and now she's still working, and now she's a real estate agent. So again, you can see that entrepreneurship and that innovation spirit that runs through the ladies in my family. And then, of course, I would be nowhere without my amazing husband, Jerry, because again, we have to think about the families, parents and spouses that support us in our journey. And so my husband is already retired. He's a firefighter, and he knows I love what I do and am passionate about inspiring the next generation. And so he's supportive of my career, and he makes this possible that I can be dedicated and working long days and traveling because he's willing to share that passion with me. So again, it starts with that key foundation of family and supporters. And other people, may not have the family as their supporters, but maybe they have, their family might be a family they've adopted along the way, right? Friends, people in college. So, but for me, I'm grateful to my parents and my husband for all they've done for me.
I love the energy you're putting into it. It's infectious, I have to say. You mentioned that one of the first passions is obviously space, and our podcast is called Space Uncensored because we want to give platform to women. We feel they are very underrepresented, and there's a lot of sometimes overwhelming or it's the space is a little bit misunderstood, right? What, in your view, what are some of the misconception which you frequently hear, and how do you want to clarify to people around space and women in space?
Well, that's an excellent question because one of the things I really see is this perception or misperception that space is not for me. right? And we think about that. We think about whether it's underrepresented groups, so those could be inner city or rural communities or women or diversity, or regions of the world. People think, well, space is not for me. That's for those other people. That's for astronauts. That's for rocket scientists. But what I want to highlight is space is for all of us. You know, there are more than 92 countries operating in space and many more that want to be in space. And the global space economy is $546 billion in 2022. 78% is commercial. So it's products and services we're using every day, but it's also companies that are hiring a diversity of people from high school graduates to PhDs. So the misperception I really want to break down is space is for all of us, not just for some of us.
We should use that quote. I love the quote. Space is for all of us, not for some of us. I think we will steal it from you if we can.
Perfect. I'll have to include that. So wonderful. I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah, this is amazing. Thank you so much. And we'll go back and talk a little bit more about the commercial space economy, but going back to like the family and the women, I mean, your role kind of within the industry, and you have numerous recognitions like the one from the Women Tech Network. Those are truly inspiring. What can be done to ensure that more women are kind of drawn into the field and that they thrive in the space industry? How can the industry, be more welcoming?
Well, I think there's a number of ways the industry can be more welcoming. Obviously, reaching out to those underrepresented groups, whether that's rural communities or inner city, diversity. And so how you can do it is you need to meet people where they are. So you need to go to, diversity regions of the country or the world to find those individuals and reach out to them. I mean, one of the things we're learning at Space Foundation is, we want to help bring more regions of the world into the space industry. But one of the ways you reach out to people is we have to put our material in their language, right? If we want, so, you got to meet people where they are. So, and one of the ways you meet them where they are is with language. You also have to meet them with what are those variety of roles? If somebody is working in rural Colorado, to think that they could be in the space industry may be a long stretch. So you got to meet them where they are and explain how space helps farmers, increase crop yields with precision agriculture, or track, pest or fertilizer, or needing, mitigation of fields and so on. So it's really important to connect to where people are, how space benefits them every day, and then help bring them into the industry and how they could learn about space technology and bring it back to where they want to be, whether that's in agriculture or healthcare or VR, AR, public safety, and so on. So space is really a connector, but we have to help connect the dots for others who don't understand how space impacts them every day.
As you were talking, Shelli, I was thinking, I was just testing some AI tools, right, this week. And I'm Czech, obviously, based on my name. And obviously, in Czech Republic, everybody speaks Czech. Some people speak German, some English. But in order to bring it, you can use AI. I was imagining how to bring you to a conference in Czech Republic where, you would speak English, but the avatar would immediately translate everything in Czech, the spoken material, the written material. I think that the technology which we have now at our hands will bring people like you into countries like mine, where women in space technologies are not so representative. So I already can think how you will shine on the stage. You mentioned a couple of things around the farmers and the sustainability. And I think that, Ina and I, we are true believers that using satellite imagery and other tools in that area is super important. So if you look at, the commercial side of a space growing, and what are some of the companies in this realm which are addressing these concerns about sustainability and environmental footprint of the space activities, and also how they can be used and maximized on planet Earth?
Well, it's a really important topic, is space and sustainability. And many people think space and sustainability are separate. And there's no correlation, but as you know, they're actually integrated. And one of the great places that people can check that is by going to the United Nations Office of Outer Space Affairs website, and in their drop-down menu, it lists the 17 different sustainable development goals and how space is part of each and every one of them. So what I've learned in my journey is that there are several ways that space technology is solving those sustainable development goals. So we can start with food insecurity. I met 3 entrepreneurs in Qatar that were going to Qatar University studying to be nutritionists. So first of all, nutritionist is not what you would consider a space career. But what these nutritionists wanted to do was create a healthy, delicious snack for individuals around the Middle East, but also help reduce food waste, because a lot of times fruits and vegetables, if they don't look perfect, they're thrown away and they never come to market and they just rot in the fields. And so what they did is they used those fruits and vegetables that are normally thrown away, used NASA freeze-dried technology, old technology, 60 years old from the Apollo era, to now create a healthy, delicious snack to help reduce food insecurity around the Middle East. So again, not a traditional career field, but an old technology. And then we just talked about, earth observation and helping farmers increase crop yields, manage, pest or water, fertilizer, mitigation, crop failure. And again, earth observation, that is more of a current technology that we're using, or even precision agriculture, all those tractors that have GPS and they can line the fields with planting and harvesting, can increase crop yield by 10%. And then kind of a futuristic thought is vertical farming. To live off planet, we're going to have to grow field vertically, no soil, artificial controlled environments, marginal, very little water. And we can look at actually using that technology here on Earth, because as the population continues to grow, we need to look at different farming methods, because the current ones we have of clearing land and planting crops is not sustainable for the population growth to 2050. So we have to look at different farming methods, and vertical farming could be a great option for us. It can also help with that sustainability, as you said, because a lot of times food is grown in a different location on the planet and then shipped to where it's consumed. So you've got you have a big carbon footprint, right? And so if you can grow vertical farms closer to the dense population centers, well, one, your food is more fresh, more nutritious, and you're lowering that carbon footprint. So that is just one way that space is helping to solve that sustainable development goal of food insecurity.
That's very important. And I know that space now is pretty much very decentralized and entrepreneurial, right? And thinking about the different stakeholders, and even like wondering one step kind of ahead, what about like corporations? How do you think corporations can kind of venture into this new space economy?
Well, I think there's a wide variety of companies. So we are seeing a lot of startup companies that are looking at problem solving. We have a lot of orbital debris, or how do we service satellites that might be ending their lifespan. And so there are a lot of startup companies that are looking at these problems, because remember, entrepreneurs at the end of the day are problem solvers, right? They're solving a problem, they're creating a solution, and they believe their solution is the best solution, and they're bringing that to market. So we're seeing a lot of challenges with, again, space and sustainability and orbital debris, extending satellite life. But then we're also bringing that space technology here to Earth, and we're using space innovation across all the sectors. So we're using it in healthcare, the Internet of Things, public safety, transportation, education, VR, AR. So I can go on and on. So there's an intersection for entrepreneurs to incorporate space innovation with where their passion might be. Now, on some of the direct space plays, a great place to look at is the NASA Tech Transfer Office. Over the course of the space program here in the United States, thousands of patents have been created from space innovation and technology that are just waiting for entrepreneurs to apply for the patent and commercialize. And that, again, energy and energy storage solutions, healthcare, communications, and more, so many wonderful activities. So for the entrepreneur who may not have an idea, or an investor, you can go to that NASA Tech Transfer Office. And it's not just NASA, it's also the European Space Agency and JAXA. Now, when it comes to companies, because you kind of asked a layered of questions, so I kind of want to pull the thread a little bit. All companies are part of the space industry. They just might not know it. as we're looking to return to the moon and this time to stay, look at the companies that are partnering on the next generation of lunar rovers, right? We have Lockheed Martin, a traditional space company, partnering with General Motors to create that lunar rover. Or we have the Japanese Space Agency partnering with Toyota to create that next generation of lunar rover. So there's no separation between space companies and non-space companies. I'm going to highlight, I was in Canada a couple weeks ago and I ventured into a mine in Timmins, Ontario. And in this mine, by the way, is the oldest water on the planet, 2.6 billion years old, as confirmed by NASA. But as I was meeting with the miners and learning about their technology and their innovation, who better to help us think about mining on the moon or asteroids or Mars than miners here on Earth? So again, and so as I'm talking to the miners, I'm asking them the questions. How would you mine on the moon? There's a lot of fine particulates on the moon, and it gets into everything. It gets into the seals, it gets into the filtration systems. How do we prevent that? What do we do? How are we going to mine on the moon knowing that fine particulates can get into everything? And it was interesting hearing their thoughts. So again, who better to talk to about what we want to do as we become an interplanetary species than the individuals who are doing those roles and activities here on Earth? So again, those miners might have not thought they're part of space, but they are. They're going to be the brain trust of how we think about mining off planet.
I love how you made the examples, and also made us think, and I'm sure for the audience it'd be super interesting. So, who they probably sitting and say, okay, I'm doing this job. How can I do this job or utilize what I know in the new space economy? And I think we want to stay there for a second, Shelli. I think Ina and I, we both experience in our company that, if you talk about space, the same what you said about, it's not for me, for somebody else. Banks, for example, networks, healthcare systems, and so they look at it and think this is so far and it's not for me. But I think what would be really interesting to understand from you, what do you think it's the primary catalyst for these companies? What you made the great example with the miners, but how would you, for example, go to a bank to start to think even about space as the economy, something which is for them, or any other industry which comes to your mind?
Well, I'm going to start with the banks cannot live without space because every ATM machine is running on GPS. That is the original form of blockchain. Is you go to an ATM and there's a date timestamp that's coming from a GPS that validates that transaction was real and not false. So every bank in the world, every stock transaction is only brought to you because of space technology and cybersecurity. So might be a revelation to bankers to know that they're part of the space industry and they couldn't have those ATMs if it weren't for space. But you could pull the thread and say, well, how are we going to pay people off planet? Right? Are we going to, somebody going to open up a money belt and on the moon somebody's going to get paid in dollars, or what is the currency? And so, we think about cryptocurrency. How are we going to pay people off planet? Is there going to be a new off planet currency? I mean, these things have to be thought through. And how are you going to pay people? And then at the end of the day, a lot of the space economy, over 90%, is here on Earth. So we need bankers and investors, right? I'm going to go, if a startup company wants to create a space technology, they've got to get financial capital. Are they going to go to a VC? Are they going to get a bank? Are they going to issue debt? I mean, so it's still the traditional activities that financiers do. It's just a different target market that might want to use their activities. And then again, as we become interplanetary species, what is that currency going to look like? How are we going to pay people? What does that entail? I don't know. I think about Star Trek and how, they had credits and they could use the,
Yes.
Right? They could go to the holodeck and stuff and you used a credit. So again, I don't have all those answers. But again, the best people to think about it are people in the finance sector and determine how will we do that? Or, right now there's no long duration activities. I mean, the longest I think we've had some people in space is a year, right? We did some studies on, long duration space flight and the activities on the human body. So all the banking was still happening on Earth. You could still log in and check your bank statement. So probably for the foreseeable future, traditional banking on Earth is probably going to happen. But once we start having research colonies on Mars where you're going to be living there years, what does that look like? I don't know. Is every financial system still going to be tied to Earth, or will eventually there'll be a Mars financial system, or the moon is still close enough to the Earth you can probably stay tied to Earth? But again, probably we need, you're a futurist, so I'm thinking that there's probably going to be a different form of finance on Mars than there is on Earth. It's going to be it's a different planet. It's kind of like when I talk to, space medicine experts. Dr. Vanessa Farsadaki's amazing. We all think, well, space medicine, it's one doctor. And she's like, no, think about all the doctors here on Earth and all the specialties we have. Well, we're going to need all those specialties on the moon and in microgravity environment and on Mars, right? Because we're going to have all the same type of challenges for the human body and more, right? Because we're living in different gravity environments. So it opens up this huge career field opportunity for all types of healthcare. So again, I'm not a financier expert. I look forward to hearing what some financiers might think. And again, how far are we from that activity? If you listen to Jeff Bezos, his motto is, is it hundreds and millions of people living off planet, and as we, Elon Musk wants to get to Mars, and the UAE wants to have a Mars research center in less than 100 years. So again, this isn't something you have to think about overnight, but it is something that is going to happen. And what will that financial system look like for people who don't live on Earth? I'm not sure. I'm not sure they'll be tied to an Earth-based financial system.
Interesting.
Definitely. Shelli, I am a very big fan of Star Trek, by the way. I was always inspired by, this living on a different planet. And even at MasterCard, we've looked into how to de-risk space payments. We know that as we move off the Earth and reaching, for example, Mars, we have to deal with latency issues. And there's some solutions, but imagine if Tom Cruise wants to buy a coffee on the moon and he goes to Starbucks, right? And then he's waiting 23 minutes for a transaction to occur, then we need to make his experience a seamless. So there are many ways and technologies that are being developed now that can help us to think through. And I also want to add on back to your point. I think we also are going to experience a boom in terms of people who are going to travel to space, especially with some companies like Space Perspectives and some others, where they will be offering trips to low orbit for a little bit, and maybe to the moon, or even Venus, or around Venus, the orbit around Venus. But it's very exciting because beyond images and obviously manufacturing, I'm just wondering, the space economy is really booming right now. Where do you see the most promise of transformative growth within the industry in the next maybe 2 or 3 years?
So what we're going to see a lot more of in the next 2 or 3 years is really that low Earth orbit where NASA has been operating become more commercialized, right? NASA is going to commercialize, right? They're going to leave the International Space Station. It's due to be decommissioned by 2030, and they're already awarding contracts for commercial space stations that will be run commercially, and NASA and other government agencies may just be one of the renters of the facility to do experiments. So you're going to see a lot more commercial activity taking place in low Earth orbit as the governments move out of that space and more invest in the long duration flights, or investing in different types of propulsion, or looking at what does the cislunar gateway and living and staying on the moon and going on to Mars. And really, that's kind of the role of government, to invest in places that don't make financial sense and have a high deal of risk for a commercial entity. Low Earth orbit, don't get me wrong, space is still rocket scientists. It's still very dangerous, but we've been operating in low Earth orbit for 60 years. It's time to allow commercialization there with government oversight, and now allow governments to invest elsewhere. So low Earth orbit's going to continue to populate, especially with telecommunications. You're seeing a lot of internet services going up, whether it's, OneWeb, Blue Origin, SpaceX, that telecommunication piece is really going to be robust. I also see a lot of the things I talked about with healthcare, the ability to use what we're using in microgravity environment and being able to save lives on Earth with that learned technology, whether, we know like for women, we develop osteoporosis at a much greater rate in microgravity, but obviously we develop it here on Earth. There's a lot of other cancer and other things we can really do a lot of research on in microgravity environment and then bring that technology to Earth. So I see a lot of application. And then with NASA partnering on the Artemis plans, the Artemis Accord, 27 countries have signed those to return to the moon, create the cislunar gateway, and then allow companies to start creating research centers and so on the moon. You're going to really see that grow more in the next 2 to 3 years. Will NASA be leading that? Right now they are leading it, but you are seeing companies that are really taking aggressive postures. So, like SpaceX is planning to have a commercial orbit around the moon this year. That's commercial, like it's paid for by, people who want to go around the moon. And we know that SpaceX is pushing to land on Mars as well. So I think you'll see a partnership with governments leading, but a lot of those commercial companies also with innovation and entrepreneurship and tighter timelines, they're going to really be pushing things. But that 2 to 3 years is really going to be low Earth orbit and a little bit as we push on to learning more about cislunar gateway and, living and staying on the moon.
Shelli, I think that if we would have spoken like 2 years ago, the timelines might have been a little bit even longer. And I was wondering with the massive boom of OpenAI and generative AI and the massive investments which are going into, where do you see would be, the changes where these new technologies, which obviously are here now in the last 18 months and absolutely changing the way how we operate, how we analyze, how we look at trends and data. How would you see this is changing the new space economy?
Well, I think there's a lot of great things about AI, and then there's also, some scary things about AI, right? We're hearing both sides of it. I think AI is a tool, just like, I don't know when calculators were invented, we'll say 40 years ago, but, everybody, I think my husband had an abacus, right? So we think about it is a new form of tool that we can use. So we need to figure out, how do we use this tool? How does it make us more efficient? And as we know, ChatGPT and others are not perfect, right? You can get in, like I've kind of asked ChatGPT about Shelli Brunswick and it told me somebody else, right? So we know the data is not always perfect. There needs to be a person in the loop who is confirming that, yes, that data is accurate, right? But it will continue to grow and evolve. So it's a tool. How do we want to use that tool? How will it take the mundane things that maybe we do and help make them faster? So let's think about, we all like to post on social media, but you can kind of do a little outline and now you can ask ChatGPT, hey, help me make this a social media post. And it makes it all cool and puts emojis in there. And it does it in 2 seconds where it could have taken you 20 minutes. So is it going to be the cutting edge that everyone is fearing, Terminator? Not yet, right? It's more, can it help me fix my social media posts and other things? And I've also seen how, let's pull the thread beyond just scientific help. We have so much data coming off satellites.
Exactly.
That
Exactly.
humans cannot process it, right?
No,
So this data is coming
exactly.
off. Artificial intelligence can process that data and provide actionable information to the human in the loop that can then take action, right? Weather data. Think about, we've got a lot of hurricanes coming towards the US. We got another one coming now called Lee. So again, this AI could process that data so faster, do faster, what are the potential paths and save lives. So AI is a tool that helps us process the data. And so I think we need to look at it that way. And I've even seen it. I like talking about even space and art. We're seeing, I watched Fareed Zakaria a weekend ago where he talked about AI, and he talked about how an artist has created an AI installation that's now generating art, right? Random generations of art. And so we are even can pull AI into that steam. So for the people out there that are interested in art, you know, this technology, this space innovation is part of art as well. There's a blending now. They're not distinct and separate, they're inclusive.
You know, there is a very famous artist, his name is Refik Anadol, and Refik, in many of these art pieces, he obviously utilizes AI, but he uses space data. So it could be data which is frequency of flights, it could be satellite data from, you know, from different parts. So it's amazing how he combines, as you were saying, you know, the space information, utilizes AI to create something really, really beautiful and dynamic, because as the data are changing in real life, the visuals are changing as well. So I think he's absolutely great representation of what you just described.
Yes, absolutely. And I think just being in the field of AI, I mean, and thinking even about the James Webb technology, right? I mean, imagine creating something that can inspire people so that, and create like a story for them that resonates, and they feel more, inspired to actually go beyond Earth to, create different other, technologies and applications that can help the life here. And thinking about helping, life of other people, and kind of balancing life and work. I have been using and leveraging AI in my day-to-day tasks. But Shelli, I mean, how do you manage your demanding schedule? And are there any routines or tools you kind of can share with us or tell us that can help you to really stay on the top of your day-to-day tasks?
Well, I think the first thing you always have to do is invest in yourself, right? My husband was a firefighter. So, as a first responder, you have to take care of yourself before you can take care of others. And many times we don't do that, right? We sacrifice for others to the detriment of our health and our families. So what I'm going to share with your audience is you must take care of yourself. And so one of the things I like to do every day, if possible, is get up before my husband and my family gets up and go work out. We have a home gym, even if it's only 30 minutes on the treadmill or it's an hour and a half. But to me, that's part of getting me ready for the day, putting me in the right mind frame. As I'm walking on the treadmill, it helps me clear my mind and think about the day and prepare for that. So I think that's part of my routine in preparing for the day. I also enjoy on the weekends doing thoughts, and what I mean by that is I think it's really important to be mindful. Mindful of where you want to be and what you want to do and how you want to spend your time and what is your impact. Because otherwise, there can be many distractions. So my husband has taped a note on the door going out to our cars that says, when you say yes to others, you may be saying no to yourself. So again, this is about being mindful, because sometimes you say yes to everything, but yes may not get you to where you want to be. And this is the example I'll use. You could have $20 and there are 20 charities you can donate to, and you can give $1 to every charity. And same amount, but probably minimal impact. But if you gave $20 to one charity, bigger impact. So that's kind of about being mindful. How do you want to spend your time and create the impact you want with your family, for yourself, and your career goals? Because if you're not mindful, you may not be creating the impact you want in 3, 5, 10 years. You may not achieve the goals you're hoping to achieve. So you must really be focused and mindful. The second part of that is being grateful, having a gratitude journal. I had a wonderful evening last night with some amazing women in our community, and we talked about how grateful we were that we were an amazing community, that we connected, that we supported each other. And when you're grateful for things, even on the bad days, even when things don't go great, you are reminded about how wonderful things are and how you are blessed, and it changes your mind frame to allow you to give to others. And so one of the things I've done is I've looked at a new leadership model called global transformational leadership, and it relates to being inspirational, being authentic, and having gratitude. So again, I tie that together and so to your audience, be focused, be mindful on what you want to accomplish. Remember, you must take care of yourself first before you can help others. And then also remember that being grateful is the best way that you also take care of yourself and your mental health, as well as helping others.
It sounds like you are creating your own little blue zone, which is one of these spaces in the world which, people are very happy and live for a really long time. I want to you said, take care of yourself before you start to take care of others. And I want to touch a little bit on mentorship, because mentorship, you post a lot about it and you speak about it in your talks. Can you shed a little bit of light on its importance and take it also into the space exploration and the space industry?
Absolutely. Well, I think mentoring is super important. And I think there's different levels of mentoring. And so we need to be clear with that, because otherwise I think people don't really know what mentoring means. I need to get a mentor. What does that mean? Because it really means, what do you need, right? Being mindful. What is the help I need to accomplish my goals? You need to know that. And so let me kind of go through the different types of mentoring. So first, there's role models. And so what you're seeing on Facebook or social media is we need people, especially of diversity, to be role models, to be posting things, to be sharing the opportunities. And this is so important. I've had people reach out to me on LinkedIn and say, I started my own company and I became a CEO because I saw you were a COO and it made me know I could do it. Right. And so that is important, that as diversity, women, underrepresented groups, different career fields in the space industry, you're posting on social media, you're helping someone you may not even know. You've created a role model, a career path, an opportunity. Then you have mentors, champions, and coaches. So when I think about a mentor can be somebody who really helps you in one certain area. And so I think about like a baseball team. You want to become a really good hitter, so you get that mentor who helps you be a better batter, right? And so I've had several proteges that are like, I need your help because I want to be an entrepreneur, and I need your help to help me bring my product to market, and so on. So it was very focused. Or I want to get into my master's class. So it was very focused. It was very, and once you accomplish that objective, it was kind of over, right? It was like, hey, keep in touch. And so mentoring is kind of very focused. Coaching is more a life thing, right? It's more like the baseball coach, looking at the whole team, how do things interplay? What is the long term of the team? And so when you coach somebody, that's really a long term. That's like, where do you want to be? How do I help you accomplish life skills and lessons learned so that you're going to be successful 3, 5, 10 years? That's really planting that long-term impact for that person. And then champions are the individuals who may not do mentoring or coaching or role modeling, but they're the individuals that help you make the leap to the next step. I've been so fortunate to have many champions in my career that I thought I wanted to be on this path, but they were like, hey, what if you did this? Wow, I never even thought of that. And so I try to be a champion for people when I can. Can I help individuals? I have several proteges that have started their own nonprofits, or they're creating their business. And so it's really helping them pivot to being a leader and finding the next pathway for them. And it doesn't mean it's it doesn't have to be a long term. It's, you made a phone call, you got somebody an interview, and now they got a new job opportunity. That's what a champion can do. Or they opened a door and they connected you to somebody else. You don't have to be there day to day or answering the email or the phone calls. It's, you gave them that championship point that changed the course of their journeys. So it's really important for your audience to know what they're looking for. Are they looking for role models for what they think they want to be? Are they looking for mentors to help them really grow deep and a deep skill set in a certain area? Are they looking for those coaches that help them become a better leader and grow up? Or are they looking for that champion that can help them, transform from the caterpillar to the butterfly and make it to the next leap?
Oh, this is amazing. This is very interesting and very, well thought. Thank you so much. I was going to ask you, can you recommend a book or maybe a podcast we can listen to? But anything on the top of your mind, any future plans that you have, what makes you excited in the next 1 year, Shelli?
Well, there's so many amazing things happening. Obviously, the first thing I'm going to say, I'm not sure when our podcast comes out, but I'll be at the International Astronautical Congress in Baku, Azerbaijan. So hopefully I'll see you, but hopefully many of your audience members will be there. I'd love to meet people. I'm working on my book that's about lessons learned that over my 25-year career, but I'm incorporating other people's stories into those lessons because, you know, we need to incorporate more people and elevate others, right? Because when you elevate others, you help to elevate yourself. So I hope to see people at IAC. Obviously, there's a number of wonderful things taking place in the space industry. You know, NASA and ESA have so many missions going off. I just posted something on my Facebook where you can have your name go to Jupiter with an upcoming launch that's coming up. So check that out. There's also the Psyche mission that's taking off in October. So there's so many great things going on. It's finding the passion of what keeps you moving forward. But I will tell you the thing that keeps me moving forward is inspiring the next generation of space leaders. And I hope that your podcast and the efforts I do with the United Nations Office of Outer Space Affairs, Space for Women Mentoring, or Women Tech Mentoring are helping to create those future leaders that will eventually take our place and help us as we become that interplanetary species.
You know, I think that we wanted to ask you actually about a quote before we finish, and we got so many different quotes throughout the podcast. I don't, you know, and obviously you spoke about your book, which we are very curious and looking forward to have it. I think Ina, you want to bring it to a close? I think we are just on time, 5 minutes to go.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Shelli. Thank you for shedding light on the many facets of space and your outstanding contributions. We will definitely make sure to include links to all of your initiatives and also link to the Space Foundations and share that links with our listeners. But thank you so much for your dedication.
Well, thank you for inviting me to join you, and I look forward to seeing you around the galaxy.
Thank you so much.